The revolutionary act of undoing, why subtraction is your greatest power in a world obsessed with more. Good morning. Thank you for being here today. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Lucinda Batton, a transformative voice whose work has fundamentally altered how we understand power, liberation, and authentic existence. Lucinda isn't just another thought leader, she's a spiritual revolutionary who has helped thousands of Black women reclaim their right to rest, authenticity, and unapologetic existence. Her work doesn't just change lives, it saves them. Through her profound insights, she has created sacred spaces where women who have carried the weight of the world can finally exhale. What I'm about to share with you today comes directly from the wisdom Lucinda has cultivated through years of deep work with communities ready for a different kind of transformation, a transformation that might seem counterintuitive at first, but one that holds the potential to revolutionize everything about how we live, lead, and love. We live in a culture obsessed with more productivity, more achievements, more responsibilities, more choices, more connections, more information, more everything. From the moment we wake up to the moment we fall asleep, if we even allow ourselves adequate sleep, we're bombarded with messages telling us that the path to a better life is through accumulation. Get more education, build more skills, take on more projects, expand your network, increase your influence, grow your portfolio. And there's nothing inherently wrong with growth or expansion. But here's the question that changed everything for me. During my conversation with Lucinda, what if the most powerful transformation doesn't come from adding more, but from taking away? What if the secret to unlocking your greatest potential isn't about doing more, but about undoing? This isn't just a small idea, it's revolutionary. And it challenges everything we've been taught about how change happens. Think about it. When a sculptor creates a masterpiece, what are they actually doing? They're removing, chipping away, taking off everything that isn't the true form waiting to be revealed. The statue already exists within the marble. The artist's job is simply to remove what doesn't belong. What if your most authentic, powerful self is already there, just waiting for you to chip away everything that isn't really you? This is the profound insight at the heart of Lucinda's work. True power and transformation are not found in adding more achievements, roles, or expectations to your life. Instead, they emerge when you consciously release the limiting stories and burdens you've carried, especially those placed on Black women to be perpetually strong and accommodating. Let me share with you the story of Rachel Cargill, founder of the Loveland Foundation. Rachel recognized a critical gap in mental health resources for Black women and girls. But her journey didn't begin with simply adding another organization to the world. It began with undoing. Rachel had to first question the narrative that Black women must always be strong, always be resilient, always keep pushing forward, regardless of their own well being. She had to undo the belief that vulnerability was weakness. She had to release the idea that doing more was the only path forward. Through her own experience with burnout from activism, Rachel realized that healing required undoing harmful expectations first. She saw how the strong Black woman archetype had prevented so many from seeking help, from acknowledging pain, from prioritizing their own healing. She recognized that before she could build something new, she needed to dismantle something old. What began as a birthday fundraiser exploded into a movement, raising over $250,000 and eventually providing therapy grants to thousands of Black women nationwide. But the Loveland Foundation didn't just add another service, it fundamentally shifted the conversation around Black women's mental health by challenging the toxic expectations that had caused so much suffering in the first place. This is the power of undoing. It doesn't just create space for something new, it transforms the very foundation upon which everything else is built. Consider another powerful example from Lucinda's research. Minda Harts, author of The Memo. Minda's work addresses the unique challenges facing professional Black women in the workplace. But her approach isn't about adding more strategies for navigating broken systems, it's about unlearning. Black professional women often face immense pressure to conform, to code switch, to shrink themselves rather than lead authentically. Minda's own corporate experience was defined by microaggressions and the exhausting labor of trying to fit into space not designed for her. She had to undo years of conditioning that told her success meant assimilation. Through her books, workshops, and podcasts, Minda has helped thousands of women take up space at work without apology. Companies now consult her frameworks when building inclusive cultures, but none of this would have been possible if Minda hadn't first undone the belief that her worth was tied to how well she could contort herself to fit into space not designed for her. The result? The Memo became an Amazon bestseller, and Minda is now recognized among LinkedIn's top voices, shaping equity conversations globally. Her approach shifts industry norms away from fix yourself toward unlearn what was never yours, making workplace safer and more empowering for all marginalized talent. But perhaps the most radical example of the power of undoing comes from Tricia Hersey and the NAP ministry. In a culture that glorifies hustle and equates rest with laziness, Tricia founded a movement that positions rest as resistance, especially for descendants of enslaved Africans in America. Black communities disproportionately suffer from exhaustion and burnout due partly to generational trauma in modern hustle culture. Trisha's solution wasn't to create yet another productivity hack or wellness program that adds more to people's plates. Instead, she invited people to do less, to rest, to nap, to simply be. After experiencing severe burnout herself during graduate school and church ministry work, Trisha realized her worth wasn't tied solely to output. She had to undo generations of conditioning that equated her value with her productivity. She had to release the belief that constant motion was the only path to liberation. Through public installations, workshops, digital campaigns, and her book, Rest is Resistance, Trisha has created a movement that has touched tens of thousands worldwide. She coined terms like rest is resistance that have become rally cries across social media and wellness spaces. Organizations now consult the NAP ministry before launching wellness programs because Trisha's approach centers undoing harmful narratives first, not piling new obligations onto already taxed lives. These three examples illuminate a profound truth that Lucinda Batton has articulated so beautifully. Permission is more important than perfection. The journey isn't about striving for flawlessness or checking off every box of success that society hands you. It's about granting yourself permission to rest, grieve old identities, lead with softness instead of armor, and choose paths that align with your truth rather than external applause. This is particularly revolutionary for Black women who have historically been denied permission to be fully human in all their complexity. The expectation to be perpetually strong, to never show vulnerability, to always accommodate others' needs before their own. These are burdens that were never theirs to carry in the first place. Undoing these expectations isn't just personally liberating, it's socially transformative. When Black women lead from a place of healed authenticity instead of performance or survival mode, it inspires collective healing and opens doors for others to rise alongside them. This is what Lucinda calls embodied leadership, leadership that flows from being rather than doing, from sovereignty rather than strategy alone. We don't build lasting legacies by force or competition, but through embodiment, rooting ourselves in truth and honesty. When we lead from this place, we create ripples that extend far beyond our individual actions. Rachel Cargill's Loveland Foundation has inspired similar initiatives nationally focused on centering care over constant productivity. Minda Harts has shifted entire corporate cultures away from assimilation toward authentic belonging. Tricia Hersey has sparked a movement that challenges the very foundations of capitalism's grip on our bodies and spirits. None of this would have been possible if these women had simply tried to do more within systems designed for their depletion. Their power came from undoing, releasing expectations, shedding limiting beliefs, and refusing to carry burdens that were never theirs. So, what does this mean for you? What might be possible if you embrace the power of undoing in your own life? Perhaps you're carrying expectations about what success should look like that aren't actually aligned with your deepest values. Maybe you're holding on to a version of strength that requires you to deny your own humanity. You might be clinging to identities that once served you, but now keep you small. What if instead of asking, what more should I do? You ask, what can I undo? What stories about yourself are you ready to release? What expectations have you internalized that were never meant for you? What masks have you worn for so long that you've forgotten they're not your face? This isn't about abandoning responsibility or commitment, it's about discernment. It's about distinguishing between what truly serves your growth and what merely keeps you busy, between what aligns with your authentic self and what you've adopted to please others or fit in. I want you to imagine a life where you've released everything that isn't truly yours, where you've shed the expectations that were placed on you without your consent, where you've let go of the constant pressure to be more, do more, have more. In that space, that sacred empty space, what would grow? Who would you become if you weren't constantly trying to become someone else? The most radical act in a world obsessed with accumulation is deliberate release. The most revolutionary stance in a culture of constant striving is conscious stillness. The most powerful transformation in a society fixated on addition is intentional subtraction. Today, I'm challenging you to embrace the revolutionary power of undoing, to question every should that drives your actions, to examine every burden you carry and ask, is this truly mine? Does this truly serve my highest good and the highest good of those I love? And then, with courage and compassion, to begin the sacred work of letting go. Because your greatest power doesn't lie in what you can add to your life, it lies in what you have the courage to release. Your most authentic self isn't waiting to be built, it's waiting to be uncovered. Your truest legacy won't come from what you accumulate, but from what you liberate in yourself and in others. In a world that constantly tells you that you are not enough, The most revolutionary act is to realize that you already are. You don't need more. You need less, less noise, less pressure, less of what was never meant for you in the first place. So today, I invite you, no, I challenge you to embrace the power of undoing, to release what isn't yours, to shed what no longer serves, to unbecome everything that isn't really you, so that you can return to who you've always been. This is how we change the world, not by doing more, but by undoing what keeps us small, not by adding more noise, but by creating space for truth to echo, not by carrying more burdens, but by laying down those that were never ours to bear. The revolution begins with release. The transformation starts with undoing. What will you undo today?